people in. Welcome. We're going to give it a few minutes. We have quite a lot of people joining today, so it's going to be a great opportunity to interact with everyone. We've set up a few ways to interact. So for now, it would be fantastic if you're able to mute.
Yeah,
and
sure.
then when you're in breakout rooms or there's other opportunities to participate, we'll encourage you to unmute. Fantastic. So far I see we've got 37 people joining. We're going to give it a few more minutes. But welcome to everyone who's already joined. Great to see some good morning messages, good afternoon messages in the chat. Good morning from London here.
Hi, Tova. Nice to see you. With Tova in here, Lisa, if it all goes wrong, he can just do this.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Yeah, I'm seeing some familiar faces and names. So definitely got some backup in terms of support.
Yeah, no pressure, right? Just loads of people who are already very good at this.
Okay, Ross, should we give it another half a minute and then we'll get started?
Ready when you are.
Brilliant. Okay, I think with respect to everyone's time, we've got an hour. Seems like we've got a lot of great people joining, so we're really keen to use this hour fully. So I think we might get started. Ross, if you're able to move ahead. Great. So welcome everyone. This is the fourth in the series that the Humanitarian Leadership Academy is running in terms of webinars as we adapt and respond to COVID-19. And we're really pleased to be joined today by Ross Coxon, who's the Director of the Learning Collaborative at Humantum. Humantum is a membership-based organization.
Ay, huwag na kayong mag-chat.
All right, as I said, we're using the meetings function, which means people can unmute, but we really appreciate as you're joining, if we're able to stay muted. So we're really pleased to be joined by Ross today. And today we're going to be talking about online facilitation. So probably a lot of you are already facing this challenge or really keen to learn more about how to be a great online facilitator. So we're going to look into that over the next hour. All right, Ross. So a few things to make sure that this webinar goes smoothly for everyone. We've chosen the meetings function on Zoom, which means you can see people, it means you can interact, we can use breakout groups. It does mean you can also unmute, so if possible, so that we can hear everybody, and so that we can especially hear Ross as he's sharing, please stay muted. So we've got a few little pictures here of how you can mute. There's a microphone in the bottom left corner of your screen. So if you've joined and you're not muted, please do mute. And I know that we've got a few people who could definitely mute now. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So as questions are arising, please do drop them in. Maybe someone else can answer them. So please feel free to answer each other's questions. I'm also going to be keeping an eye, and from time to time we'll ask Ross to pause and see if we can direct those questions to him. We're going to be asking for active listening and mutual respect. So just like you would do in a face-to-face meeting, listening to each other's inputs when there is the opportunity, for example, in the breakout group, and really staying focused for this hour. We're going to be using some tools to allow you to input. So please do actively participate in those, as well as when you're asked to join the breakout group, please participate so that we can hear everyone's input. And last thing, the meeting is going to be recorded. It will be saved and shared afterwards on the Humanitarian Leadership Academy webinar series on Kaya. So you can choose to have your video off if you don't want that to be recorded. And it's only in the main meeting room that it's recorded. So when you go into those breakout groups, you won't be recorded. Lastly, if you want to tweet or if you want to share about this webinar as we're going along, that's our Twitter handle and that's our hashtag. Okay, I think that's everything. And I'm going to hand over to Ross, who's going to take us through the next steps.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session. Thanks for coming, first of all. It seems very global, which is nice. There are some faces I recognize and some that I don't. So welcome, everybody. I've been doing this, I was talking to Lisa about it yesterday, and I suddenly realized I've been doing this around about 15 years in various forms. And I still think that I learn something new each and every week. So this is by no means a set of golden rules or facts that won't adjust. What I'm hoping to do is point you all in a few directions and show you perhaps a way or a path for you all to walk individually. But this webinar alone isn't going to make you a better online facilitator. The only thing that's going to make you all a better online facilitator, frankly, is doing a whole bunch of online facilitation, practicing, seeking feedback, and we'll come on to all of that. I did just want to go back a slide because I think it's important for you all to recognize this is what I look like if I've had like a shave and or at least a trim and a haircut. This is my COVID-19 response. So please realize I can't go to the barber. So we're going to do kind of four things. We're going to look at what makes a good online facilitator, and we're going to look at what we should be focusing on in order to be successful. And then I got some tips for you to help you get better fast. And then we should have a lump at the end to do some just general Q&A, and we'll do as much of that as we can within the time. So I hope that's okay with you all. I think one of the interesting things about people who attend these webinars for tips is they already tend to know an awful lot, or there tends to already be a high amount of knowledge in the room. So I'd like to find out a little bit about you. You know a little bit about me now. I would like to find out a little bit about you. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen, and I share a different screen with you. If you can give me a second. So you may or may not have used this already, but this is where you can all answer some questions. So what I need you to do is grab a device. It can be your phone or a tablet or the computer you're on or whatever you're using. And can you go to www.menti.com? So this address here, and I think Lisa will put that address in the chat as well. And then the code you need is 86. Blimey, that was very fast. Very good stuff. 86935, and I've got an echo from somebody. And I'm going to mute you. There you go. Thank you so much. Wow, this is good. So as people log on, once you've answered the question, you should be able to see the responses coming through. We've got about 12 people answering now. There's about 79 in the room, so we'll let that number get up a little bit. If you're doing your email or having a sleep or talking to the person next to you, this is where we find out. Okay, there's a little trend. Some of you have never done it. Some of you have done it a little bit. Some of you have done it quite a bit, but don't want to be, you know, want to remain humble and honest. So you're saying somewhat. Quite a few of you are doing quite often, which probably means a lot, and 2 of you do it all the time. Okay. 2 more, maybe. That counter stopped going up. All right, so a fairly, oh no, classic. So pretty even, some more than others, but largely not too much. That's okay. I got a ton of hints and tips to help you get doing a little bit more. How can you be doing this sort of every week or twice a month in a safe way? All right, I'm gonna skip on because it's still going up. Let's go to the next question. So I feel comfortable. So even if you haven't done it, you might feel that that's something that's comfortable for you to do. And if you have done it, you might know it's uncomfortable. So who's comfortable doing it? Oh, lots of people. And you know, in this new strange world that we live in of having to talk to our families and friends online, there's so much online facilitation going on, even in people's home life, that perhaps wasn't happening before. So somewhat, it depends on what it is, right? If it's an online team meeting, it's kind of easy. If you're doing Humanitarian Leadership Academy webinar for 83 people, it might be a little bit more nerve-wracking. Thank you, no one, for picking option 4, my random option that I've left there. Okay, wow, so largely people are comfortable, but still some people haven't done it very much. Okay, that's clear to me. Okay, here's a classic question for you. Does online facilitation have advantages over face-to-face facilitation? Wow. 5 people, 6 people, very strong. Okay. No one said no yet. I've been living with the no's for the last 15 years of my life. There's a lot of no's out there, even if they're not in this group. Okay, that's cool. That's really interesting. So yeah, of course, there are advantages of face-to-face over online as well, right? But certainly online has many advantages. And you clearly, 26 of you are pretty sure about that. When we go into the breakout rooms later, you'll be able to tell us why you think that, which I will be fascinated to know, as will everybody else who's either not sure or no, or just hasn't answered. All right. To facilitate online, you need complex technology. So we're going for speed this time. Oh, 3 of you very clearly saying no. All right. Maybe it's always my favorite. I feel like my response to all questions is maybe. Yeah, you don't need complex technology, but you need something, right? If you've only got a piece of paper and a pen, you could facilitate somebody's learning if you were sat next to each other, but you certainly couldn't do that across the world. But is the technology complex? Is Zoom complex? Is Skype complex? Is WhatsApp complex? Probably not. Is Kaya Portal complex? Probably a bit. So last one then. I mainly think of online facilitation in terms of what, and you can put a tick on as many as you like on these ones. Any remote activity which helps guide or steer other learners, absolutely. Group coaching, courses, WhatsApp, forums, MOOCs, and webinars. Interesting. So as you answer these, I'll let you all know that I got a couple of red herrings in here. So WhatsApp groups and forums, to my mind, is exactly the same thing. Well, WhatsApp group is just a forum. You can push content in either one. People can discuss that content. It's just the same thing. But WhatsApp's kind of trendy, and forums are seen as kind of old-fashioned. So I threw a red herring in there. Courses, I also think is a bit of a red herring. It could be any of these things combined, right? You could have a MOOC with a webinar, you could have forums with a standalone course. So I'm with the 38 of you that have said any remote activity or any combination of remote activities. And what I'd urge you all to think about is, how do these things stitch together in what you're doing? You know, email plays a part in a webinar, email plays a part in a course, a forum can take part in a self-led course that you went through by yourself that you discuss with others afterwards. All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. I will nip back in. Okay, some chat as well on some of those responses for those of you who didn't quite get through. That's okay. Thank you very much for participating. I appreciate it a great deal. So you guys know a lot already, right? So you didn't really need to come. You don't need to listen to me too much. So now I want to find out with you some more about what you think. Lots of you have already done a lot of online learning, right? You already know what this is. If you didn't know what this was, you'd come to a webinar that was titled, "What is online facilitation?" You came to one that's, "I want to be better at online facilitation." So you already know a ton of stuff already, and I want to find out what you all know. Clearly, all 86 of you know more than I do. So we're going to use another online tool now, and this one's called Mural. And in a minute, Lisa's going to drop it in the chat. I just want to show you a screenshot of Mural because it has a little bit of a learning curve. It's a little bit more complex than Menti, but I do find that it's a great way of organizing your responses. So what you're going to do is you'll open up with this this whiteboard here, and the Zoom settings are here. So if all the post-it notes are very small or very big, you can do the plus and minus down here, okay? And then if you want to put a post-it note on, you're going to go over here and you're going to click on that there, and then it's going to bring up a little window and you're going to drag a post-it note. And I'm going to do that for you now so you'll all see it happen once, and then Lisa's going to fire the link in. Oh no, she's not. She's going to put you into breakout rooms, so you're in smaller groups of around 5, and then you'll get or whatever order Lisa is going to do this in. I should have probably thought of that beforehand, but never mind. It'll all happen. Right, so let me share Mural with you, and I'll show you how it works. So here's your actual mural, and I'm going to put a post-it in so you know how it works. So you're going to click on that one there, and then you get all this stuff. Grab a post-it note of the color that you like best. So I'm going to pick yellow because I'm boring and it's the first one. And then you're going to write your great idea or thought. So the minute you drag and drop, and then you can click anywhere, and then it's ready, and you can move these around if you want to. So maybe you read somebody else's idea and think, oh, that's good. You're going to click on the post-it note, you're going to click and drag, let go, and then typey type straight away, okay? And then we're going to fill this board with all of your great ideas. I'll be in there, Lisa will be in there. I'll try and, if you do something a little crazy, I'll try and clean it all up and watch that. Once we've collected all of your ideas, I will PDF this document and send it to you all. So don't worry if you're trying to read everything. Right now, we're just going to do some fast idea generation. So just throw your ideas in and have a little fun. So Lisa, over to you. If you want to put everybody in a breakout room and get them the link. Lots of people coming in.
Brilliant.
Now.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah, so I'm going to put you in a breakout room. So a breakout room is when you move from the main room to a smaller group. You're going to all have the link. The link is in the chat for Mural. So what we're going to ask you to do in breakout rooms of about 5, you can start, maybe one person can type, or you can all choose to type as you're doing it together. But it would be great if you can discuss some of the reasons about what you think good online facilitation is and why, and sharing your experience. We'll keep an eye on the Mural board. You'll probably be in your breakout groups for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how quickly we see this coming together. You can choose to leave the breakout group at any time and you'll come back into the main group. Otherwise, you'll get a countdown when we close all the groups. And a reminder that anything in the breakout group isn't recorded, but Ross and I will be dropping in to see how it goes. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to put you into random breakout groups now, but make sure that you open the Mural link already. I'm already seeing some developing, some post-it notes go. Okay, so you should see a message inviting you to join a breakout room. Just click that, join breakout room, and then start the discussion and start inputting into the mural. It looks like we've got some fantastic input in the mural board. I hope that was a useful exercise and you were able to chat a little bit to your fellow breakout group attendees. We'll just wait for everyone to come back. I think they've all now closed the breakout rooms. And I think handing it back to Ross, it'll be, I mean, it's quite a challenge on the spot to summarize, but there's some fantastic points coming up here and a lot of shared ideas, which is great to see.
Thanks, Lisa. I mean, I'm sharing my mural screen at the moment, right? Which one am I sharing? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Can I just say, I often find Mural an interesting experiment in like social behavior. This is not to do with webinar. It's an observation I make. So whoever did these down here and like these over here, these are orderly people who can't stand the chaos that's going on in here and have to like find a little bit of white space and put their post-it notes into somewhat clean lines. And I enjoy this. I'm the guy who's putting everything on top of everything else. I just really respect everybody's need for order or chaos and enjoy often observing this. So people are still in there and adding stuff. Feel free to. After this is all over, I'll go in there, I'll tidy it all up so everything can be read. I'll PDF that, I'll send it to Lisa, and then in the follow-up email, you will all have access to this. I could have never presented, perhaps even come up with all of these great ideas about how online facilitation should be. So when you've got some time, when you're thinking about it, and I'll give you an exercise that will take you back to this outside of this webinar, and you can just do a piece of reflection of looking at this and starting to think about yourself and what are you good at? What are you not good at? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So let me stop sharing Mural because it's very distracting to the eye, and go back to my slide deck. Immediately lost. There it is. So there's a lot of stuff there, right? I mean, there's just a lot of thoughts there, and I think sometimes with just online learning in general, but certainly online facilitation, there are so many tools, there are so many ideas, there are so many thought processes, and it's not something we grew up with. Recognize that you all grew up with face-to-face delivery, right? In school, in university, in college, in your early days of work, it was probably nearly all face-to-face delivery. So you have all of these models, these things at work. When I train face-to-face trainers, I say, tell me about the best teacher you ever had at school. What was it that one teacher that everybody has that was just inspirational? Who was it? How did they do it? Maybe it wasn't a teacher in a formal way. Maybe it was a family member, like, or family friend, or just someone you knew, someone who's an inspirational teacher who taught you so much. What was it that they had that really drove your thirst for learning, your need to learn, your need to improve? And it's the same thing here. You know, what really works for you, try it. And you know, And don't try and be somebody else, right? Be authentic to yourself. I think it's really important online as well as face-to-face that you remain authentic. So what should you be focusing on? Well, that's, you know, that's kind of individually down to you. There is so much to focus on. And I guess what I need to focus on and what you guys need to focus on is two different things, right? And every individual has different things. So I'm going to send you with that mural an action plan. And what I'd like you to do after the webinar, you've obviously come here for a reason. You've got a stack of things you want to work on. I want you to go through that mural, spend some time with your action plan, and be honest with yourself. What are you good at? If you're good at stuff, sure, build on that. But what do you avoid doing? What have you never done? What perhaps have you tried and hasn't quite worked for you? What are those things? And build an action plan on, I'm going to work on having more participant activities in my online facilitation. Let's say that's what you're going to work on. That would be a good thing to work on. And then you need to start to think about, well, how would I do that? Now, we've done 3 things. So everyone's introduced themselves. That's an easy one. Everyone does that. Then we had like this question thing using Menti, free, go do it. There's a ton of other questioning tools that you could use. We used Mural, right? Some there, but just the breakout room, just going into a smaller room where you feel like you can open your microphone and talk to somebody, put people in pairs, whatever it is. How are you going to increase participation? What do the icebreakers look like? And we were talking about icebreakers the other day. And still at Humanitarian, we do this all the time, and we're still debating what the great icebreakers are, what works, and you don't want to use the same one every time. There was a new one for me the other week, which was everybody, and we're going to do it right now, so get ready. Everybody touch something blue in the room that you're in. You're allowed to get out of your chair, but go touch something blue now. Patrick grabbing himself. I like it. You know, that is, in many ways, that's the world's simplest thing, right? Go grab it. Who have a watch? You know, or you could say go touch something higher, whatever it is. But there's something about an instruction followed by an immediate, simple activity that is energizing. So, what are you thinking of? Like, how are you breaking this up? If you're working in forums and it's a text-based and it's not live, where are your inane questions in that forum, right? It's not all got to be business as usual, right? Are you talking about TV? Are you talking about what people are doing, what people are home baking because they're all locked in their house, whatever? So I can't tell you what to focus on, only you know. Go to the mural, use the action plan. You don't have to use my action plan, you can use any action plan you like. And just construct yourself something for the next, honestly, month to 3 months maximum. Don't make like your next 5-year facilitation plan here. That is not going to make a world of difference. What are you going to do next week, next 2 weeks, next month? That's really going to help you practice some of your stuff. Okay, so did I say everything I needed to say? Yes. Okay. So, oh no, I didn't actually. The last thing is on this is you got to seek the feedback. So if you, let's say you're looking to improve your webinar skills and you're currently running team meetings, perhaps you're not running team meetings, you should be running team meetings, looking for opportunities to chair meetings with your teams, with people you're working with in Zoom, in Skype, in Teams, whatever it is, Google Hangouts, whatever you're using. Do some exercises in those meetings. You can do the touch of blue thing. Before we start meeting, let's have an icebreaker. Everyone touch, and just practice something, right? Practice something else, put people in breakout rooms to discuss something and come back, ideas generation, whatever that is. So you're practicing in those little safe ways, and then seek feedback. Go talk to everybody. How was I? What could I have done better? What worked? What didn't work? And just constantly seek that feedback and keep tweaking your action plan on that. And then once you've got a methodology, once you know what's authentic to you, what's good for you, tweak it, change it, but don't keep making wholesale changes. Find out what works and build on it. Make small iterative changes. All right, that was that point, right? So how we do 37 minutes rule. Good. So some tips. There are many tools out there, many tools out there, and almost too many to choose from. So today, or for this webinar, we've used Mural and an LMS, which is the Kaya platform, right? It was advertised through there, you logged on through there, you registered your interest. You got an email about this, you'll get an email following up. So you've got that joining instructions, follow-up activities. So far, the majority of what we've done is either through Zoom or email, right? Okay, we use Mentimeter and Mural as well. But there would be nothing to stop you using 2 or 3 tools and really expanding it past just using Zoom. And be really thoughtful about those emails that people get before they join. It sets a standard. What pre-work could they do before the webinar? Who could they talk to before they come to your webinar or piece of work or course? And then what's that follow-up look like? It's not about the hour, 45-minute that you're in this webinar. That's only a little bit of the learning. The learning is the journey, right? The program. So what everybody does next week, next 2 weeks, next 3 weeks, next month, in implementing perhaps the one thing that you learned from this webinar, that's the difference. That's what's going to change. That's what changes your behavior, changes your performance. Sitting in the webinar and listening to me sort of ramble on isn't what changes your learning, but what you do with what you learned is the change. Okay, so just think about that. Think about everything else. Are you sending text messages? Are you using Teams? What forums have you got available to you? Are you just phoning someone and giving them a coaching chat? Like, there's 100 different ways of doing it. There is a blog by Jane Hart, H-A-R-T, and it's the top 100 tools. Okay, she's been doing this forever. And it's just a really interesting place to sort of drift over. And I should have got the link for you. And Lisa, if you've got a moment and you can go and grab that, it's Jane Hart. Okay, thanks. She's been doing this forever, and I actually think what she's got to say is pretty important and pretty interesting. When you look at the top 100 learning tools, it isn't an LMS. It isn't Zoom. Well, Zoom's actually a high riser at the moment, but it's things like YouTube. It's things like Twitter. It's things like WhatsApp. And so there's just a whole bunch of free tools in there. So if you look in the top 50, there's just a whole bunch of free tools. Some you might know, some you might not know. You can go and investigate these things. Mentimeter is in there, Mural is in there. And you can go and find stuff for yourself and just have a look what fits you, what fits what you want to do. Every situation is individual. Try some of them out in small ways. Make sure you know how to use it before you go in. Then deliver your course. So that takes me on to the second point. Once you know the tool you want to try out, practice in small ways. Practice with your family Zoom calls. Now you're trapped inside and you're talking to your friends and family. Like, how are you running a quiz in your family call? Like, try it out. Just experiment in those small, safe ways, so that when you come to do a webinar for 87 people and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do Mural, you better know what you can do with it and how it works before you get there. Otherwise, the temperature in your room gets pretty high pretty quick. Number 3 is kind of contrary to everything that I just said, but focus on your facilitation, not the tech. Tech always brings out a shiny object. There's always a new shiny object, you know. Oh, I need an LXP to be able to run this course, or I need I need to use Vimeo. I can't use YouTube because of all of these reasons. So the tech will always drive you. So think about what you're trying to achieve. Start with the end in mind as you would any course that you're designing. What is it that I want my learners to be able to know, to be able to do, and what will they feel after I've done this course? That's it, nothing else. and then look to the content that leads you to that output. What are they going to do differently? And then look to the tech that's going to allow you, and I would suggest the simplest tech, that's going to allow you to deliver those objectives. The last thing I would say about this is go to where your learners are. If all of your learners are on one platform, let's say Facebook, there's very little point making a LinkedIn group, because you're going to have to drive everybody who's already in one place to a new platform. And a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group could be a course, right? Very easily. How are you curating content? What are you putting there? So kind of know your audience and where they are already. If everybody in your group is using WhatsApp, then why are you emailing them joining instructions? Why aren't you sending them WhatsApp joining instructions, or both? So focus on your learners, where they are and what you want to achieve and what's available to you for free. Try and, I hope at least I've done some of this, but try and be a facilitator and not a fountain of knowledge. And that's much easier in smaller groups where you can really get people to open their microphones and talk. But certainly we'll have a good bit of Q&A after this where we can do that. Try and help groups think, produce ideas, and just try and facilitate that the same as you would in a face-to-face. Again, seek feedback and listen to it. You'll always get an evaluation after this. Lisa will send it to me. I will look at it. I look at it, my feedback after every course. It's important that you always grow. Number 6 is the most important. It should have been number 1, but it didn't really work with what I was trying to say. So number 6 is be an excellent online learner. Let me see if we can do this. Put your hand up if you've done an online course other than this webinar this month. Oh, there's loads of people with their cameras off. That doesn't quite work. Okay, you can. That is excellent stuff. The more you do, some of you are Zoom legends, clearly, with your emojis. You know, do as much as you can. Seek it out, even if it's terrible. You learn something, right? Well, you learn what not to do. So just be an excellent online learner. Don't sign up to a ton of courses and not do them, which is, of course, classic. Try and sign up to a few and complete. And the more you do, the more webinars and more courses, and the more you do, keep your little facilitator Google Doc or whatever it is you're doing that says, when I did this course, I liked this thing. And just keep a running record of all the things that you like as a learner. And then when you're building your action plan, what am I going to do? You're going to have this really great curated list from a great online learner, which is you. And the last thing to remember is one size fits all. Some people will get a lot out of this webinar. Not everybody will. You can't make a course face-to-face or online that satisfies everybody. You're almost better to focus on smaller areas than try and be so general that you don't sort of talk about anything. So I know one size doesn't fit all. That's why I want you to look at that mural, build your action plan so that what you come out with at the end of this webinar is something that's personal to you and isn't just what Ross thinks you should work on, because frankly, what you should work on is different for everybody. Okay, with 15 minutes to go, we've got a little bit of time for questions, and I think Lisa needs a couple of minutes at the end to facilitate. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it's just a question mark. And nobody needs to see that. And then you can, Lisa, were there questions that I missed during the...
We've had some great questions in the chat, Ross,
Okay,
and thanks everyone for really active participation. There's a few which I can summarize for you, and then maybe if anyone else wants to jump in with questions in the chat, we can add them. One from Sheen Orihuela, sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Do you have a script on hand when facilitating? I'll give you a few. From Emmanuel, what about privacy? If you're asking learners to learn through WhatsApp and Facebook, often that's a personal account compared to a work account. And then one other is, what other tools are there for questioning? Like we used Menti. So what other tools would you recommend for that? I'll give you those 3, and then there might be a few more popping up.
Okay, I like the first one a great deal.
Kasi pagka magsasalita ka, i-unmute mo lang. Ba't mag-message ka?
Okay, I didn't understand that. I'm sorry. We'll go. I'll come back to you afterwards if that's okay. If that was a question, I like the first question. Do I have a script? Anyway, it's obviously not somebody who knows me. I don't have a script for life, let alone a session. But let me show you what I do have. This is my notes for this webinar. Oops, no, that is not my notes for this webinar. Let's try again. Share screen. That one, please. Okay, this is my notes for the webinar. I've got my timings. I've got my links. What I want to say. Those are the 5 questions in case I can't look at my screen. These are the things I want to say at each phase. So it's not very detailed, but it's certainly bullet pointed. I wouldn't go in without knowing what the outcome of each moment is and how those moments stack to be the end. But I would never script. I would always bullet point. The same as if you're recording a video, right? Which is something you might do as online facilitation. Just keep those bullet points of so you say what you want to say, but the trouble with the script is if you're reading a script and you lose your place, it's really unnatural. Whereas if you lose your train of thought, it feels more natural to the audience. So that was one. The second one was question tools.
Yeah, what tools for questioning? And then the third one was about privacy in using personal accounts.
So there are a bunch of question tools. Certainly, if you look at Jane Hart's blog, there's a few mentioned there. My favorite one used to be Kahoot. I don't know whether anyone used that. That was slightly insane. But you have to pay for that one now. So I try not to display using it because Mentimeter has a free account, so you can use that for free. Where Kahoot is great. I fully recommend it. If you've got some money to spend, I think it's barking mad, but much more fun. Mentimeter's a little bit more corporate, a little bit more stale, which if you're doing like icebreaker questions, and Kahoot does timing. So if you're setting questions for people to get it right or wrong, how fast they get it right equals what score they get. So there's a bit of competition there. There's a ton. There's some that build directly into PowerPoint. I don't like any of those. I probably shouldn't say that. They're good too. You should try them out. Right now, Mentimeter's kind of got it sort of boxed off if you're looking for something free. You can do lots of other stuff that I didn't do. You can use SurveyMonkey, right? You can just send a SurveyMonkey link out, and then when everyone's finished, give them the time to finish it, and then share the results. So you can do anything. Yeah.
So is it possible just to jump in for Mentimeter? They also do charity rates. So if you do decide to go with Mentimeter, the professional version, just make sure you get the charity rates because I think that's like a 40-50% discount.
There you go, Manny. Thank you very much. That's top advice. See, everyone knows more than me. And then the last one was from Manny about privacy. The trouble is that if all your learners are there already and you go down a privacy route and try and drive them into a private platform, you may find that none of them go there. If you build it in a place where everybody already is, but they don't want to use their personal accounts, then they might not go there. So it's a trap both ways. Globally, Europe and US don't like to use Facebook for work. The rest of the world, in my personal experience, when I've trained globally, are much more comfortable using their Facebook for work. So it's got to be about knowing who your learners are. So I hear you. I don't know that there's a great answer. Some parts of the world are more conscious about privacy than others. So for example, there was a course that I know, a project management course that was run on WhatsApp in its first instance on the Turkish border with Syria, but it moved to Telegram. Now, I don't know many people in my life who use Telegram, but if you're Turkey, Syria, everyone uses Telegram because it's encrypted and has a much better encryption than WhatsApp. So, you gotta, the answer to your question is know your audience and find out about them, Manny. It's just it's a complicated thing. And then of course, if you're in China, or somewhere like that, you're limited on what you can choose. So you got to be really conscious, and you do that by talking to people. Acceptable length of a webinar. That's a good question, Ruth. I just saw it come in. You know, 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, if you can do it in 20, do it in 20, right? We do a lot at Humantum that is slightly different to this sort of thing, and we do 30 minutes webinar and then 30 minutes for question, which means you can go to the webinar for 30 minutes and run. But if you want to stay around and dig in, and you're all welcome to leave now in the questions bit if you've got everything you need. But I think there's a nice, it's nice to have some time to discuss stuff afterwards. Please don't make them 2 hours. It's my plea. Any other questions, Lisa? I don't want to.
Thanks, Russ, and it's fantastic to see people answering each other's questions in the chat. Yeah, there was another question about how long can online learning realistically last for if you're trying to convert directly from maybe a face-to-face or a workshop training that you've already got, which is typically 2 hours. Can that shift across quite easily to a 2-hour online setting? I'm sure you would say no. And I'll add one more question from a couple of different participants talking about privacy and security when using online settings. I know this has been in the news a lot recently in terms of Zoom accounts. I'll say that we took a couple of steps for this webinar. We turned off things like annotation so that people can't draw on the screen. We added a meeting password, which stops random number guessing. But we did choose to keep videos on. We can, in terms of the backup settings on Zoom, I can't speak for other platforms, but you can choose to have all participant videos off. So there are ways that you can control the level of interaction there. Ross, I don't know if you have anything else to say on either of those.
Yeah, the first one, I love this question, whoever asked it. Yeah, it's actually really tricky converting online courses, face-to-face to online, okay? And how long should it be? There are 2 sets of times to think about, right? Seat time, how long somebody is sat on their bum in a seat doing learning, and how long the course lasts for. In face-to-face, those things are the same. In online, they are not the same. So let's say it's a 2-day course that you deliver face-to-face. Would I say do 2 days on Zoom? No way. Why would you limit yourself to 2 days? Is my first point. One of the great advantages of online learning is you can spread your program over a given length of time. The only reason these courses are short and compacted is because that's how long you've got people for. You can't drag everybody out of their job for, you have to justify how long you've got people out of doing whatever else they should be doing in face-to-face. Online, you can learn a bit and then implement a bit, and then learn a bit and implement a bit, and learn a bit and implement a bit. This is a huge advantage over face-to-face. In face-to-face, you sit there for 2 days. You leave the 2-day face-to-face training. You have to try and remember everything that you just learned or made notes. And then you go back, and what do you go back to? A ton of work that no one's done because you've been out for 2 days, and an absolute ton of emails, right? So once you've got back on top, you've answered all the emails and you've done it, you've forgotten even more from the face-to-face course. So you come to implement it and you're like, oh, I remember like 2 things now. And okay, you implement 2 things and that's great. Online program, learn a bit, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, do something, then go back in and learn a bit. You're not having that massive hit of your time afterwards. So how long would I make an online course? As long as I could make it reasonably. So I would spread a 2-day course, maybe over 2 weeks, maybe over 3, and have short 30, 45-minute webinars, and I would set work in between. Right? I'd ask people to go and investigate this. Let's say you're doing finance. Go and look at X department's budget, or go and talk to someone in finance. Like put a reflective, active bit of reflection, a bit of activity after each webinar, and build yourself a program which extends the period of a learner's engagement. Now, obviously, if you make it too long, you're going to lose your learners. So there's a bit of a golden section here that is hard for me to tell you without understanding your context. But don't convert face-to-face to online like it's kind of a, you know, it's like it's a one-to-one. It's not a one-to-one. You've got to think about it as far as learning objectives goes and as far as outcomes goes, not as far as time goes. Time is relatively uninteresting in the conversion. Is that a big enough rant about it?
Thank you, Ross. I'm hoping we've got time for one last question before we wrap up. Sure. It's a big question, but I think it's really relevant. So
all right.
Even if you can offer one sentence on it, low bandwidth, how to still ensure that learners with low bandwidth can access online learning. In 1 minute, go.
Depends on what you're doing. Number one, there's lots of low bandwidth options. Let's say you've recorded a video and you want everybody to watch a video. How are you sharing that video? If you can, and not everybody can, I would suggest sharing on YouTube, because YouTube will actively manage the bandwidth, right? So there's a great tool already out there to do it, and it's free. Don't go put it on Vimeo, because that's a high bandwidth. So, or don't share an MP4 that they've got to download. That's never going to happen, right? So think about them. Content is king, media is not. Media takes up bandwidth. The heavier the media, the more high resolution your images, the more fancy your videos, all of that, you're always restricting. Is what you're doing available on a mobile device? Because frankly, most of the world now, if their standard internet isn't working, they'll pick up their phone and go 3G or whatever, right? 5G probably in most countries. I'm still in the UK, you know, yeah. But you know, if you're struggling, you know, people pick up the phone. So does it work on as many devices as possible? And lastly, like, record your stuff, because sometimes people just really can't get in, and they're trying, and bless them, you see them coming in and out of the room. Oh God, I wish you can't fix it. And you all know better than I do. It's not always about the internet, right? Sometimes it's about power, right? And it's not about low bandwidth. Low bandwidth actually isn't that big a deal. It's spotty bandwidth that really causes a massive issue, right? Where you get these massive peaks and these massive troughs. Little bandwidth, you just turn off your video, you'll be all right probably, or you know, it takes a bit longer to buffer. But so it's spotty bandwidth which is the issue. But my last point on this is take heart. This is the world's fastest reducing problem. The fastest reducing problem in the world is not malaria, it's not HIV, it's not access to clean water, it's not food security, right? It's not peace, certainly by a long way, but it is access to the internet. The access to the internet is moving faster than anything else and improving faster than anything else. So if 60% of your participants have got relatively solid bandwidth, I say, and this is slightly challenging, and depending on what you're doing, try and satisfy that 60%. Once you've really satisfied that 60% with good bandwidth, go figure something out for the 40. But by the time you've got the 60 sorted, there'll be another 10% from the 40 that are in the 60. So it's tricky. Offlining doesn't particularly work very well. It's a challenge, but be thoughtful about it when you design.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ross. This is something that we're really keen to hear your experiences of in terms of finding different ways around bandwidth issues as well. With an eye on time, we're in our last minute. I just want to wrap up with a couple of things. And if you need to drop off because it's on the hour, please do. Ross mentioned that one of his top tips for being a good online facilitator is to continue your online learning. So I thought this might be relevant. The Humanitarian Leadership Academy's platform, Kaya Connect, has a link to a learning design playlist, which has a ton of free resources, whether they're courses or toolkits about learning and learning design. So I'll drop that link in the chat if you want to explore it and go through it. And then just a reminder that this webinar is part of an ongoing series as we adapt and respond in terms of online learning, what we can offer during the COVID-19 crisis. The next one is not going to be next Friday because it's a May Day bank holiday in some countries. We're going to do it the Wednesday after, and we're going to be joined by Melanie Mural from Inclusive Education to talk about how to produce digital content for online demand learning. So just like Ross said, content is king. It's not about the media. So looking at how we can adapt and quickly get content
Thank you
together
very
for online
much.
learning. Okay, we're going to wrap up. I can hear some people saying goodbye. Ross we'll send across that action plan for you. I'll just give you a quick example of it. It's going to be in a Google document, which is read only. So all you have to do is make a copy of this, and you'll be able to fill in the action plan based on what you're finding from Mural. And this recording and all the tools we use today, you'll find them on our Kaya Connect platform under the Humanitarian Learning webinar series, which you would have joined. So a massive thank you to Ross and to everyone who joined. We really value your input and your feedback. But I'll wrap up there so that everyone can enjoy the rest of their Friday. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming all. Stay safe.